Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this APM InFocus webinar, which is the support for December 2024 exams. I am Richa and I work as Education Support Manager at ACCA. So this session is going to focus this time on read the mind of the marker, which you can well think from the kind of the title we have, step inside the mind of the marker. So we are joined by our expert tutor Z Kang, and he will help you with your upcoming exam preparation. So during this session, TK will provide you the insights from the RTMM. He will take you through technical examples from the article, sharing practical advice for tackling your December exams. He will also talk about some of the strategies which you should adopt to avoid common pitfalls and improve your exam performance. Towards the end, good thing is that we will also be having live Q&A. So you can ask the questions. You can ask TK some questions which you have in your mind, and we will pick them up towards the end. Before I hand over to TK, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items very quickly. There is help icon that provides resources and information to help you resolve any technical issue you might have during this webinar. There are icons for both slides and media player. So you will need to see both of these during the session. So make sure that you have selected them. There is an attendee chat function also. I believe you already have started using attendee chat function by telling us that from where you are joining us from. And there is resource list as well, which through which you will be able to access resources which are very much relevant to today's session, including the direct links. So you can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize your windows if need be. And at any point you are not able to hear us or you are not able to see the visuals, you will be able to access the recording. And also you will need to refresh your browser. So as I mentioned that you can watch the recording, so you will be sent an email tomorrow with the details that how you can listen to it again. So don't worry in case there are any technical issues at your end. I'm going to hand over to TK in a moment and we'll be back with you towards the end of the session. And as said, I would reiterate that if you'd like to ask ACCA or TK a question, please post them in Q&A box. And we cannot guarantee responding to everyone directly, either verbally or via web chat, but we will hope that the questions we share are helpful to everyone. So with this, handing over to you, TK.
Thank you very much, Richa. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you from all over the world, which I can see from the attendee chat. We have students from the UK and also from the Middle East, India, Africa, and also the East Asia part. So welcome to this webinar, Step Inside the Mind of the Marker. My name is Zikang Chan, or you may just address me as TK. Well, in this part of the sessions in the webinar, I will be highlighting to you the way to really impress the marker, ensuring whatever you do, whatever you write in your answers, would try to increase and maximize the chances of grabbing marks from the marker's perspectives. So in order to ensure none of the paragraph that you wrote it's ending up 0 mark, you really have to understand and step inside the marker's perspective to understand how are the marks being awarded to the students. As such, in this webinar, the discussions and the sharing is mainly making use of an article which everyone will be able to get it in the ACCA website on APM. Read the Mind of the Marker article. From now, I would like to refer this as the RTMM, where I will highlight to you some crucial information and findings that may really enlighten you, giving you some kind of the insight, ways to do things in a different approach and more effective way comparing to what you may be doing at the present moment. Towards the end of the session, feel free to ask me as any questions that you have that bother you, which I can see some of you already have put in some questions in the Q&A or in the attendee chat. I will take as many as I could by the end of the sessions to clear your doubts in giving you some advices and tips over there. So before we get started off, this is a little bit about myself. I'm from Malaysia. I have been teaching the subjects that mentions on the slides here for more than 20 over years, not only in Malaysia, but in a few other Asian countries and as far as Africa for the last couple of years. And I'm here to share with you some of the guidance and tips in dealing with one of challenging paper, Advanced Performance Management, which I can see from the attendee chat. Some of us already start showing some worry and tensions towards the countdown of the last 2 weeks for the APM. So what exactly that you may want to do from now until the exam day to really increase the chances of getting through the examinations, of at least securing yourself with 50 marks to get a pass, obviously. So here we go. Let's dive into the mind of the marker. First and foremost, if I want to ask you these questions, have you got a clue what exactly markers are looking for from your answer that you produce, especially in the word processor, and to a certain extent, some of the calculation you may have done in the spreadsheet? Well, as you may know, the entire APM exam papers are made up by two main sources of the marks: the 80% of the technical marks and the 20% of the professional skills marks. Have you got a clue what exactly the marker are looking for from the technical marks aspect? Well, this is the answer. As you may be aware, most of the marks in APM exam are mainly relating to narrative type of the questions and the tasks. As far as the narrative task is concerned, the marks, the technical marks, are mainly judging based upon the extent and the type of technical knowledge that one will be able to relate and apply in the correct and the relevant manner in response to the scenario based on the task given. And when I say correct and relevant manner, it actually meant the breadth and the depth of the contents that you have shared in your answer. Now, you may ask a very simple question, TK, what do you mean by the breadth and the depth of the answer that the marker are looking for? And the answer for me, it all depends on the verb and the marks assigned to the task. If the verb is asking to critically evaluate and coming with a mark of 10 or more, that is perhaps giving you a clear hint. You have to cover a broad scope and indeed of your discussion and evaluation. Whereas if the mark on, again, the questions is asking briefly discuss, and the mark is coming in the range of 5 marks or lesser than that, that perhaps tells you, well, you have to just keep a small focus on what you want to articulate. So try to just match to the best extent that you could based on the verb and the marks assigned to this. So that is exactly what the marking team may be looking at. As for the computational task, in other words, the calculations bits of the job, the questions may have asked you to calculate the KPI that is provided by the questions or the KPI that recommended by you. So when you carry out this kind of calculations on KPI or many other of the indicator, one of it, economic value added or residual income, when you are to demonstrate this computational work, are you able to show and demonstrate technical knowledge that is the relevant technical knowledge, and are you able to use it in the correct manner? So when I say correct manner, a good example would be if the questions is asking to derive a divisional KPI such as ROI or RI in assessing the performance of the manager. So guys, keep an eye on the word manager. So what does it imply if the questions is asking for such a KPI? You may have to aware the principle of controllability so that you only select and include items that is within the control of the manager of the division in deriving the KPI such as ROI and RI. So that is what I meant by you are able to apply technical knowledge in the relevant and the correct manner to score and lock up the technical marks to the maximum extent. Guys, let's not forget about Above the marks is very much depending on the level of the professionalism that you demonstrate in your answer. So namely, these are the professional skills marks that we have. Well, some of the golden rules in order for you to secure the professional skills marks from the marker, it's that, are you answering the questions as required? So are you able to differentiate if the questions is asking you to evaluate or merely discussing or demonstrating? So with the verb, will you be able to answer in the manner that the verb meant to be so? So that is one of the basic rules to score the professional skills mark. And this is what the marker are looking for. Followed by the content, the way that you articulate your answer. Are you putting them in the right tone? Are you challenging the comment, the findings of a director in the company as required? If you are challenging, you've got to probe by raising the questions, by raising some doubts. So that is what we call the right tone in addressing the verb correctly. So this is exactly what professional skills is all about. Last but not least, are you showing your answer, especially the narrative answer, with clear labeling, with heading, and with a clear paragraph that addressing a point of the articulation? In other words, are you concerning to what extent your answer are marker friendly? Are you able to draw the marker attention, telling the marker, look, in this paragraph, I'm addressing for this particular matter. So these are the habits that what the marker are looking for in awarding the professional skills marks, such as communication skills. Many students would thought communication skills are mainly coming from questions 1. Well, that is correct. And many students, however, may thought communication skills is only awarding on the format of the report. That isn't correct. The marks awarded on the format of the report, at most, it comes with 1. But in a moment, when I want to show you how the marks are being awarded on the professional skills, take a look at the marks that assign to communication. Guys, that will be an eye-opening experiences for you. Perhaps this eye-opening experience could be some kind of, I would say, an opportunity. It will be something good for you to realize before stepping into the exam. Because to me, as long as you are aware how these professional skills marks are awarded, it is relatively easier to earn these professional skills marks comparing to scratching your head to just come up with fancy discussion or complex technical calculation. That is something that you may want to just grab hold of it to the maximum extent. Now, knowing what the marker are looking for, so how do you ensure your answer, whatever you wrote, whatever you have calculated, met the marker expectation? So now it's time for us to do our part. I would suggest all the students to just think about this process of dealing with each and every of the exam questions, whether it is section A or section B of the questions. As you may be aware, all the questions in APM, by going through the requirement, you don't really see much of the instructions from the examining team asking you, please do this, please answer that. You can't see much. Instead, most of these specific tasks are embedded into the scenario which found in a few of the exhibit, which therefore you can see the color of the first box on the left are lighter. In other words, do not spend too much of time on that requirement box, but spend lots and lots of time and focus on the one in the red color boxes, meaning read through the scenario thoroughly, carefully, especially the exhibits. What are you looking for? You're looking for clues. You're looking for facts about the organization, about the environment at large. More importantly, you need to pick up the embedded tasks that is reflected by the marks assigned shown in the requirement a moment ago. What next? When you pick up the clue in the exhibit and you know the embedded task, it is time for you to look for the way to join them, to link them up. Guys, the quality of your finding in connecting the clue and the task will directly affect your quality of answer. You may want to spend some time to think about how am I going to make use of the clue. Take, for instance, if the question mentions about the company is experiencing some issue, for example, declining share price performances. Why is that so? Maybe that showed a dissatisfaction among the shareholders. Why is that so? The questions may then give you a little bit more of the background why the shareholders are not so happy with the company performances. When you go to the root cause, very likely there will be some kind of requirement asking you to tackle the root cause. So these are the clues that you have to join them up together, and very likely you may be asked to apply certain models or tools in addressing the issue that relating to the root cause. Value-based management could be one of them. So you must think about how to apply this model to address the issue. And the connections of this is exactly what I meant by answer planning. And obviously, once you see the connection, please keep an eye on the verb. Please look at the marks to decide the content of your answer. To what extent you have to articulate to that level of the depth. So this is some things that you need to craft an answer frame in your mind. And the last step is obviously turning everything into your type of answer. I will always believe in this. If you fail to plan, you will be planned to fail, obviously. So that shows and highlights the importance of planning in APM. Because by reading through the examiner report in numerous sittings, it has been continuously a statement reminding all the students in all the examiner report telling you the answer from a prize-winning script tends to be shorter comparing to the rest of the answer, where it is likely to show a margin of fail. So these statements have told us very clearly to pass APM, it is the quality of your findings, the quality of your answer that outweigh the quantity of answer that you write. So please do not just waffle. Do not just keep typing or even copy and paste whatever they already say in the storyline back to your answer. The marketing team would be very much appreciate to see something from your creativity and your findings. So that is what we call quality answer. So guys, to let you see an insight of what the marketing team are looking for when they go through the marketing processes of the script, that is the documents which I would strongly recommend all of us spending some time go through this at the end or after this webinar. Here comes one of the technical examples that I would like to extract from this document, Read the Mind of the Marker, whereby this document is relating to this particular sitting of the exam paper. It is the specimen exam paper, which is found in the practice platform. Now, in this session of the webinar, I'm referring to questions 1, the case study for my illustration. Due to the time constraint, I would like to pick only one section of the requirement. But before we take a look at which section of the requirement, guys, imagine when you look at the first page, the first screenshots, like what we have here in the exam, have you asked yourself, what's next? What do you do next? Which button, which box that you have clicked in and read it up? Well, to me, if I'm the students, let me tell you, what do I read from here? First and foremost, I will not spend my time to read through every of the exhibits at the beginning. That is far too time consuming. In fact, please do things smartly. So when I say do things smartly, now in APM, this examinations paper is designed in such a way, when you take a look at the middle part of the main screen, you will notice that the middle part is telling us not just the name of the exhibit, but it also tells us what exactly is in there. I would strongly encourage you make good use of what you can see as the bird eye view from the right hand side of the screen, which is displayed at the first of the every questions. I may wanted you to just be aware, go back after this webinar, take a look at all the past exam questions and let's see what I say is correct. Keep an eye, pay extra attention, especially on the bird eye view statement for the first exhibit. That is very crucial and useful. Take for instance, the first point here tells us the exhibit 1 is going to tell us about the background, the mission statement, the new mission statement, and the 4 key areas. In my mind, these 3 things will help me when I read exhibit 1, I got to relate information or the paragraph to each of these headings. The moment I can relate, I can classify this information to the heading, I will have a clear picture. What is exhibit 1 telling me? Only then you will be able to make use of the clue in exhibit 1 when you are responding your answer to the rest of the requirement. Guys, if I'm the students, when I take a look at the next exhibit, which is exhibit 2 and onwards, you will notice that it is common. The rest of the exhibit would usually tells you what is being required, what is needed to be responded. So this is the hint to tells you the embedded task will mainly found from the second exhibit and onwards. Now, what more that is important from understanding the kind of the snapshot or the bird eye view from the right hand side? Now, let's take a look at the screenshot where you see all the requirements are here. Guys, what do you notice? It is common in the case study of APM, you are asked to produce and come up with a report that cover, in this case, 3 of the key area. However, looking at the requirement just like this, you may not be well aware what exactly you have to do. Take for instance, part 1. What exactly you have to respond to critical success factor and what exactly you have to do with the KPI. You have no clue until you go to the storyline. Guys, keep an eye on the title of the exhibit on the left-hand side. Apart from the first exhibit, take a look at the second exhibit. What did it say there? CSFs and KPI. Now, take a look at the requirement part 1. What do you notice? The wording, the title seems to match. What does it mean to you? When you would like to form your answer to respond part 1 to earn the 16 marks, keep an eye, especially on exhibit 2 plus exhibit 1. Now, if you take a look at part 2 of the requirement, an evaluation of the value for money services provided. Now, take a look at the title of the exhibit on the left. You will see exhibit 3 is talking about value for money. So that will obviously tells you, hey, that is the matching. So therefore, when I deal with part 2 of the requirement, my focus is looking at exhibit 3 mainly plus exhibit 1. So 1 is always there, is 1 with 2, 1 with 3, 1 with 4. But some of us will say, how about if I manage to see some of the clue from the other exhibit? By all means, use it. But I'm talking about the main source of evidence, the main pool of clue, allowing you to link up to the task, which you can find it from the specific exhibit. Anyway, last but not least, let's not forget about appendix. Try not to spend too much of time in overly analyzing all the numbers in the appendix, which I understand there could be many students who tends to have this kind of a attitude, which is a typical accountant to, I like to analyze figure. Well, obviously, there's no doubt. All of us like to analyze figure. But guys, in APM, please only do the things when it is required. So keep an eye on the appendix. Do not just turn on all the appendix. Do not just keep analyzing all the figure. Let's wait until you see the task. what exactly is the appendix that you're required to turn on, what exactly that you need to refer in the appendix. Are you referring to the template? Are you looking at the lineup? Are you looking at the presentation? Or are you looking at the figure? So all these will be clearly indicated in the task embedded in the exhibit. So as I say, in order to optimize the time during the exam, it is always crucial to remember, follow what is being asked, do what is being required. Guys, this is just one of the demonstrations in the first exhibit, which we've mentioned a moment ago, telling you about the organization information. Do you still remember the three wording that we saw just now? What do you think this exhibit is telling us? Obviously, it is going to tell us the background of the organization, and then you will expect to see new mission statement. Finally, you have to pick up what are the 4 key areas. So with these 3 areas in your mind, when you read through this exhibit, don't you think it will give you a clearer idea to segregate which paragraph talks about the background, which paragraph talks about the mission? Sometimes students may say, so TK, how am I going to remember this kind of segregation? There are 2 ways of doing it. One, you may want to use the highlighter with different coloring, one color for background, another color for mission. So that is one. Another way that you may want to consider is to crop this whole thing temporarily, paste it in the word processor, temporarily. And that allows you to do a little bit of the reshuffling of the sequence of this paragraph. So that depends on your habit. But at the end of the day, whatever you have done, this is just the form of the references. It is never be part of your answer. So you may have to just put aside clearly, telling the marketing team that is only for my referencing. So that is exactly what the first exhibit tells us. Guys, a reminder for you, the quality of your answers that you write, the quality of answer that you respond in every requirement of APM, to a very large extent, it may depend on how well students will be able to make use of the clue in the first exhibit. My reminders to you is that many of us tend to, after reading the first exhibit, we put aside. When we come to the second exhibit, how many of us still remember what you saw in the first exhibit? Hardly. So when we start reading more and more, we tend to forget things. So think about how do you keep yourself remember and keeping in mind what you have read in the first exhibit. Remember, as I say, the moment you manage to relate some of the issue that found in the first exhibit to your answer, that is a good evidence showing the marketing team your ability to apply your knowledge in conjunction to the scenario. And this will guarantee a quality of answer to be provided by our students. Guys, looking at the second exhibit, as I mentioned, now in the first exhibit, you're hardly aware what exactly are the tasks that we have to respond. Now, until coming to the second exhibit, you have to glance through, look for additional clue, as we mentioned, more importantly, looking for tasks that are embedded in this exhibit. How do you know which one is tasked? Guys, look for the word like someone is asking you, someone required something from you. Go back home, spend some time, take a look at the second exhibit. You will be able, or you should be able, to pick up these embedded tasks. On the second last paragraph, he wants you. So that is where it is a reminder saying that, hey guys, this is what examining team is asking you. Please crop this sentence, put it into your processor, get ready to respond. And when you pick up this embedded task, what is the word that you have to pick it up? Rule number 1, always pick up the verb. Guys, have you got a clue? In this sentence, where the red color arrow shows, which one is verbs? And the answer is, you have to provide. Provide what? The verb is, you have to give something. But give what? Justification. So to me, justification is the task that you have to complete. What do you mean by justification? It is about reasoning, telling people about reasoning. Reasoning of what? take a look at the whole sentence. You have to tell the marketing team the reason of the change. The reason of the change suggested by the advisor of the minister. So how will you know the mindset? How will you know the rationale behind the suggestions given by the advisor? I am not asking you to create your own feeling, which many students would thought, well, I have to come up with my own feeling. That isn't the way. I'm not asking you to tell about your own feeling. I'm asking you, can you connect these changes to some of the evidence, to some of the clue that you found either in this exhibit or probably in the first exhibit? Until you can put the link together, that information may have sound to hint you because of that. That's why the advisor is giving this suggestion. When you can join these together, all from the exhibit, that form a quality answer. So remember, in APM, try not to put in too much of your own working experience to give your thought, but I want to see from the storyline, from the clue, what have you discovered from the storyline? Use the clue from the storyline to turn it on to become your answer. Well, apart from these tasks, the second task that you may be able to pick it up in exam is that this is the next one. Using the above CSFs, he wants you. Do you see that? Well, anyway, if you go through the rest of the sentence, you may find that, hey, there's another one that is coming at the end of it. You are allowed to suggest. The verb here is suggest. What are you suggesting? Keep an eye. You are not asked to suggest KPI. Instead, you are asked to suggest additional data. A lot of students always just jump into conclusion and say, well, when the question is asking for suggestion, it has got to be KPI. Please do not jump into conclusion. Read the words very carefully. So many students will have missed the third task. You will have just wasted the chance to earn this easy mark by suggesting information that you think it may be useful and relevant to address the first two tasks. You may want to give the suggestion supported by your reasoning. I suggest the organization may need to gather this information because. Do not just end up by suggesting a data without defending by telling the marketing team, why do you say so? This is all about communications. When you articulate a point, make sure your content of the articulation is complete. Do not leave the marketing team in the dark. You got to tell the whole story completely to form a paragraph that is fully articulated to earn 1 mark. Now, talking about the marks, some of us leave questions in the Q&A. How do we differentiate answer that is awarded with 1 mark and the answer that is awarded with 2 marks? Well, I can tell you from the student's perspective during the exam, it would be always advisable and prudent enough to assume when you are articulating a point to address an issue, once you have developed a fully articulated paragraph, let's assume that worth 1 mark. Now, in what circumstances you would assume your answer may have worth 2 marks? My suggestions for you is when in this solution, when these answers that you wrote are addressing 2 issues, each of the issue you addressed will then earn a mark. So that makes up 2 marks. So unless you are articulating a point in addressing 2 or more issues, then that paragraph would have earned you more than 1 mark. Well, to me, even you are articulating a paragraph with 2 marks worth of the content, I will still suggest you, with the courtesy that you may have to give to the markers, try to break it up into 2 paragraphs instead of putting them into 1 paragraph. So at the end, a good answering habit of students is that every paragraph you write, you may just want to aim to earn 1 mark. So that will assure you that the paragraph that you write did not contain too much of information whereby there is a chance that the marker may have overlooked. So at the end, each paragraph would just worth 1 mark worth of the content if you manage to pick up this answering habit. Now, if you remember from the second exhibit you saw a moment ago, it mentioned that you may have to refer to Appendix 1. Guys, here comes a quick suggestions for you. After going through the task embedded in the scenario, should the task require some kind of calculation? Well, how do you know there's a calculations needed? Take a look at the response option at the bottom left. Whenever there's a spreadsheet given, it is likely that you need to come up with some kind of calculation. And very likely your calculations will have to depend on the data, the numerical data given in this Appendix 1. First rule, if appendix is coming in an Excel, which is what you see now, try to copy the entire of these Appendix 1, paste it in the spreadsheet. That will facilitate student in retrieving the number by using the functionality to derive the figure, particularly KPI. So when you make use of the functionality to show which figure divided by which figure multiplied by which figure, that would have given a clear picture to the marketing team how would you derive the figure by not wasting too much of time in retyping or reproducing this information by manually typing in. So that is one of the smarter way of doing things. That is, however, only worth doing so if there is a task asking you to come up with some kind of calculation. Anyway, after going through Exhibit 2 and Appendix 1, obviously, it's time for you to generate and produce your answer. Well, it is not the intention of this webinar showing you how to produce the answer, but maybe by you watching the debrief video on the mock exam, that would have given you a good idea of how do we turn this answer planning into a physically well-structured answer from the expert tutor. Now, in this document, RTMM, it shows two sets of answers from two candidates, candidate 1 and candidate 2. Now, let's take a look at what this article is trying to tell us as a student. When you glance through this content in the introduction, I would suggest you keep an eye on these two paragraphs. Obviously, it is not the intention of me asking you to read the word at this moment. Go back home. After the webinar, read this up. Because these two paragraphs would have told you the way that you wanted to impress the marker. And I think the last paragraph is really encouraging for the students, especially when we learn the practice questions or the past exam questions by reading through the model answer. Wow, my goodness, the amount of answers you saw in the model answer is overwhelming. It is to the extent that we even will have doubt to our own ability. Guys, spend some time. Read through the last paragraph. Let's hear what the marker could tell you about the reality in answering APM. It is not really a must for students to produce those kind of answer just like the model answer. Read in detail, you will know what I meant by that. Guys, that is how a sample snapshot of candidate 1 answer, especially for part 1 of the task, that is asking about critical success factor and key performance indicator. Remember, we picked up 3 tasks a moment ago. First, we have to talk about the reason of the change, remember? Secondly, we may have to give the suggestions of up to 2 key performance indicator. Remember, the word up to 2 key performance indicator, what do you mean by that? Can you suggest 1 KPI? If the question is asking up to 2, will you be all right to give 1 KPI? I think that is fine. Would it be all right if you give 2 KPI? I think that is fine either. Would it be fine if you give 3 KPI in the assumptions that in case One of the first two KPI I provide is of poor quality. The marketing team may want to choose my third KPI as a standby answer. That isn't a good practice, guys. If the question asks for 2 or up to 2, make sure do not exceed that. In simple, please follow what the question asked. You know why we say so? I'm going to show you the answer for that. Go back, take a look at this document. You will see firstly how the professional skills marks are awarded to the students one. And you will notice that the first professional skills is the communications marks. And don't you realize if you are able to see this clearly by reading the document from the source, that is surprising that the communications marks awarded to this script one, it's up to 5 communications marks. 5. Bearing in mind, the total professional skills marks in this case study is 10. Half of it is going to communication skills marks. If you ask me, these are really the low-hanging fruits that you should grab hold of it, maximize these marks, and that will build the cushion easily for you to reach out to the passing line of 50. The other communication skills, apart from communication, the other professional skills is commercial acumen. That would basically depend whether students will be able to relate what the story is telling you in responding or justifying what you want to say. Remember, your justification is not coming from what we call common sense. Do not use your common sense. Instead, please use the facts. Please use the scenario of the question to form your justification. These would demonstrate effectively your commercial acumen in your answer. And last but not least, the skepticism, it's the one that is very much looking at, are you able to raise the doubts on why is there a change needed on the CSS whatsoever? Do you see any doubts before the change? And do you see how this doubt is being addressed with the change? This is exactly how the skepticism marks is being awarded based upon the sample of the answers provided by candidate one. Guys, apart from professional skills marks, technical marks comes in on the second half. So to what extent these answers would worth 1 technical marks? To what extent these answers do not worth any technical marks? Now, talking about the marking scheme over here, I would like to recall the answer I gave to the first questions I was answering a moment ago. TK, what kind of answer would grant us 2 marks? Guys, take a look at the marks awarded here. Do you see any 2 here? Do you see any 2 there? I don't. I only see 1 mark. Do you remember what I say? A good answering habit, it will always allow the students to control themselves in such a way, in 1 paragraph, make sure you address 1 point. So when the marking team read 1 paragraph, oh, this is the point that will worth 1 mark. There you go. So this exactly explain and address the questions that some of us are asking a moment ago. Guys, let's take a look at the summary. How many marks the students one are getting from the kind of answers that you saw a moment ago. Take a look at the top. The technical marks on part 1, well, they score, or these students are scoring 14th. Well, to me, that is a very high achievement. Out of the marks that you saw in the requirement, that is almost full marks. But what I want to draw your attention is the professional skills marks at the second half of this box. Take a look at the total professional skills mark the students one is getting. He or she is getting 12. However, with the capping of 10, at the end, students one is getting 10 out of 10 professional skills marks. Imagine if you are student one, you already got 10. How many more marks do you need to close the gap to get a pass? You need 40 more marks. And take a look at how many marks is awarded by the marking team on the communication skills marks. Guys, will you feel surprised? Is that an eye-opening for you? Take a look at the communication skills marks. Let's not waste this low-hanging fruit to secure yourself with enough cushion to push you to the 50 marker threshold. Well, guys, time for you to look at the second candidate's answer. At one glance, you may see and feel that the layout of these candidates 2 answer looks similar to that of candidate 1. However, if you read in detail, particularly looking at the marks awarded on each of the aspects, especially looking at the summary, what do you notice? Look at the technical marks that earned by the second candidate in part 1. The first candidate scored 14, whereas the second candidate scored only 4. Despite the volume is pretty much the same. What does it tell, guys? It is again the quality of the answer, not the quantity that matter. It is the quality. Did you answer? Did you address a storyline? Did you make use of the clue sufficiently? Are you able to make good use of all the clues given? And these are all the key determinants to show the quality of your answer. So as long as you just got to play the game in the way the marker and the examining team wanted you to do so, guys, chances of you getting through the APM is definitely much higher than before. Looking at the professional skills marks, take a look at the communication skills. Out of 5 that we have just now score full, second candidates score only 3. So in total, the professional skills marks that earned by the second candidate is only 5. And guys, one thing I would like to remind you, if you take a look at the earlier page in the documents after this webinar, one of the reasons that these candidates too did not earn the full communication skills marks is because these candidates did not answer according to the instruction. Meaning that is one of the CSF, these candidates provide 3 KPIs. The questions only ask up to 2. So if you're not following instruction, you may not be earning fullest communication skills marks. That is something that worth to bear in mind. So more importantly, when you go through this document, you want to spend time to take a look at suggestion, recommendations from the marketing team for you to improve the quality of your answer moving forward. This is the one that really gave you an eye-opening insight. What are the changes that you could do? This message is especially for some of you who are retaking this exam, especially those of you who have been taking this exam numerous rounds. You need some guidance to tell you what needs to be changed. Guys, this is the answer. What needs to be changed? Follow the instruction. Please embed this suggestion to become your new habits. These will be your hope to turn around things. Bearing in mind, guys, the more changes that you are going to implement, the more chances for you to succeed in the upcoming exam. Well, in conclusion, when we wrap up the whole of these findings from the article, what have you learned? In short, let me apply what APM have taught us in getting these things done effectively. First, make sure you do the right things. How do we make sure that we do the right thing? Please understand what examining teams wanting to do. Please understand what the marker's mind is all about. These are the 2 parties you wanted to understand as much as possible. What do they want from you? Guys, you have 2 more weeks to go. It is crucial that after this webinar, go and take a look at the documents that tells you what do they have in their mind. From there onwards, tomorrow, the next day, you already know what is the right things to do. So then only you will do the things right. So when I say do the things right, make sure, go back to the ACCA resources. Make full use of the ACCA resources. If you are attached with a learning provider, make sure you are attached with the approved learning provider, making use of the resources provided by the tutor. Last but not least, you got to put your feet on the ground. You got to keep yourself going on by going through ranges and a series of practices, making use of the study hub. At this moment, in the absence of additional time, practice platform is always something you never want to miss. But guys, some of us will say, how am I supposed to read the mind of the examiner? How am I supposed to read the mind of the marker? Well, that is the answer for you. Well, spend some time, read up articles, non-topic specific article or non-technical article that is coming from examining team in APM. This is the one that you will be able to understand what the markers are looking for. Let's not forget spending time to read the examiner report. I will always suggest to the students, make sure you read examiner report for at least 2 sittings, the most recent one and the earlier sitting before that. That will tell you what were the recurring issues, what were the recurring weaknesses that candidates are showing in the answer. Very likely, guys, whatever that is recurring highlighted in the report, take my guess, it may also found in you. If you do not want this mistake to be repeated again, you better change it. So this is how you will understand what examiner wanting you to do things in the right manner. As I've mentioned, how about reading the mind of the marker? The RTMM document is an answer for that, plus of course the examiner report. And last but not least, ranges of key ACCA resources. Apart from the study hub, apart from the platform, articles, topic explainer video, especially topic explainer video in APM, there are not so many of the video. Perhaps those videos would have given you some kind of a short, a brief revision on the particular topic. So that would be a very effective way of doing some kind of revision to recap the technical knowledge for yourself. If you asked, how much time should I spend on this kind of resources before I start going into practice of the question? I'm going to give you the suggestion. Whatever data left behind for each one of you that's having from now until the exam, the amount of time you spend on like buckling up the technical knowledge, brushing up the technical knowledge, it should not exceed 1/3. It should not exceed 1/3 of your available study time. The 2/3 of the study time is for you to just keep practicing under the exam condition. So this is my golden rule. 1/3, 2/3, all the way right until the examination. Well, in short, these are the 3 golden elements, the golden components to ensure the success in your exam to come. Make sure you have the right strategy on learning, preparing your exam, and make sure you have the right approach of learning. It's all about quality of learning. No point for you to spend 10 hours of the day on looking at the book, but spend quality time. Your mindset has got to be positive. You always want to focus on the process. What is the right thing to do? I got to do it right. Do not get overly worried. What if I fail again? It is non-beneficial. If we were to just presume the history is going to recur, it would be much more effective if you think at this moment until the exam, what is the right thing to do? So your mindset and your attitude will determine, will you really fight all the way to the last moment? Last but not least, make sure during the exam day, make sure you demonstrate a sound and effective exam technique and time management. And all these things will only be possible to work well if you can behave in a rational manner. Do not respond in a very emotional way. Keep an eye on the time. When you can do well on this part, well, guys, that is the secret to succeed in your examination. Before I take on to the questions from the floor, well, you may want to just answer the questions in the poll, guys. Do you practice mock exam? So could you please just choose the one that best describes where you are at this moment? Just please keep responding to these questions. Do you practice the mock exam? Great. I can see a fair bit of the response coming in. So I think this is good sample size. Very good. Well done. Well, I'll have to give the thumbs up to majority of you who are here in the webinar and telling me you have indeed attempted a mock exam. The rest of you, not too late yet. You have 2 weeks time to go. Make sure before the exam, do sit for the mock. But if you were to ask, is it sufficient? The answer is absolutely not sufficient. You should attempt the mock, and then you have to go back and attempt the most recent exam paper, and then you go backwards. In short, I would suggest you to attempt the exam paper on a LIFO, last in, first out basis, and give a try as many sittings as you can. But bear in mind, quality of rehearsal is much more important than quantity of the rehearsal. No point to just memorize the answer and just lie to yourself to make yourself feel good. You really have to feel some change. You really have to feel some improvement when you try and attempt every set of the exam paper under exam condition. Keep that in your mind, guys. Well, we have last 5 minutes left, and I would like to take on as many questions as I could over here. I would like to first take on to the one from the Q&A. The first question I have, it's about how to set 1/3 and 2/3 of the time. Well, that is what I mentioned just now. Supposing from now until the exam time, you have about 10 days left. Now, I know that a lot of us are working, or you may have other commitment. I'm talking about what are the days that you really have, I would say at least 8 hours to get your focuses onto the study for APM. Supposing you have 10 good days. Out of 10 good days, 1/3 of it, which is about 3 days or something a bit more than 3 days, for you to brush up the technical knowledge. Some of us say, I already are well prepared on my technical knowledge. My suggestions for you, do not overly estimate. It's not underestimate, it's overly estimate your understanding on the technical knowledge. Somehow or rather, when you need to apply some technical knowledge in exam, and that is the point you start forgetting things. Take, for example, how do we calculate modified internal rate of return, MIRR? Some of you ask these questions. Is MIRR in the syllabus still? And the answer is yes, it is in the syllabus. If you take a look at the past exam paper, there was one question that is asking the students to calculate the net present value and the MIRR. So, do you still remember the step? I'm not talking about the formula, I'm talking about the functionality on using the spreadsheet to get things done in the shortest possible time. This is what I call technical knowledge. Not to mention about, do you remember what are the key components on models? But bear in mind, examining team of APM is no longer expecting the student to memorize models, to memorize what is in the model. If you made aware, whenever the question is asking for some model, there will be an appendix, and the appendix is giving you the model. The most common seen models that you saw in the appendix, including value-based management. It will show you the steps, value chain. These are the diagram that you do not need to memorize it anymore. Performance pyramid is another one that is already there. What I would like you to buckle up the technical knowledge is that, do you know how to make use of the pyramid? Do you know what is the key words that you should use when you want to apply performance pyramid? Do you know the horizontal dimension? Do you know the vertical dimensions when you talk about pyramid? Do you know about the strategic, tactical, and operational hierarchy level in the pyramid? These are the technical knowledge you want to just stand by it. Then you spend 2/3 of the time in start rehearsing, keep practicing how quick, how well that you are able to bring your knowledge in answering the questions. Let me just give you this advice, guys. Try to organize all these tools in a systematic manner in your mind. Create different compartments, put this idea systematically. So in the exam, you will be able to pull out the idea in a very systematic way to apply into the questions effectively. Anyway, that is how I will address not only one question, I'm trying to address a few questions together with one set of the answer. Now, some of us is asking, maybe I will just take on 2 more questions. Do you have to get certain percentage in section A and B to get an overall pass? No. The whole idea is to get 50 marks. Whether majority of your mark is from section A or B, as long as you get 50, there you go. So there is no such thing that you must hit certain percentage of the mark in each section. Please bear in mind. Now here comes the last questions I may want to take on. Please advise on the time management and how many points is sufficient to earn 10 markers questions. I will always tell the students, what is your objectives? Your objective is to earn at least half the marks. If you are attempting a questions with 10 marks, what is the target? 5 marks. So always remember, one paragraph with one full articulated point worth 1 mark. You need to provide at least 5 paragraphs with 5 headings. You just have to keep this momentum consistently going on until the end. You will be able to secure half the mark throughout the whole section. So that is what I would like to give the final advice to all of you who are listening. So guys, I think the time is up. Richa is here to take over the floor. Thank you very much for your overwhelming response and the Q&A. Over to you, Richa.
Thank you, TK. And I believe students have picked quite many tips and ideas from you from this session, and they have actually stepped in to the mind of the marker, APM marker. So with this hope that you have gained a lot today from this session, and you will definitely use all these knowledge in your exam preparations. So wish you all the very best for your exam preparation and your exam uptake. I would like to remind you that in resource section there are links. Please pick those links, and that will definitely help you in, again, as an addition to support your exams. Thank you to the team at the back end also for supporting us to deliver this session successfully, and thank you to all the students for joining in today. With this, all the best. Bye.
Thank you very much. All the best to all. Thank you. Good luck.